Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of The Fellas, the ultimate Formula One podcast for fans, where we dive into the drama of this weekend's race. Now, let's get into the action of today's topic, was pretty much Saudi Arabia's weekend. We have several topics we want to talk about today, but of course, let's talk about our guests. Joining us in the regular lineup, our esteemed panel of enthusiasts. We have Ray, Ralph, and myself, the host, Simon. Quick reminder to all of our viewers, if you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to ring the notification bell to stay updated on all things fellas. Now, without further ado, let's get started. Our first topic today is just a recap of the race. Fellas, what do you think about this weekend?
Interesting.
Blueprint of what we've seen for the past year or so.
Well, yeah. I'll say this.
More than a year.
I'm going to chime in. You know what? You know what the FIA needs to do is let Max show up with the car, run it on a dyno, and then tell him to go home and just chill out because he'll get the first place trophy for sure. That's what.
I think Perez is going to have some fight this year. I can tell he has to work on his qualifying, but I think he's going to give. There's going to be at least 3 races, in my opinion, that he's going to give Max a run for his money. And they're probably going to have some tension, I think, because they had some tension 2 years ago. They didn't have any last year, but they had some tension 2 years ago. So we'll see.
Well,
I hope so. I hope so, because the thing with Sergio, he's good, but it's consistency he doesn't have. So, yes, if he's consistently good and he starts to put pressure on Max, because let's be honest, the way it looks now, he's the only one that could stand a chance to do it, right? Because he has the same equipment as him. He could stand a chance. The rest of the field, they're running a separate Formula One race from Red Bull. But Sergio hasn't shown that he's that consistent, that he can keep that charge on. And that's the difference between a world champion and the rest of the field. Consistency.
Or a race champion, right?
Or a race champion, yeah. But, but in this case. So we'll see.
Yeah, because Max was almost 22 seconds ahead of everybody at one point on the track.
Yeah.
He left the field, right? So, maybe Red Bull should be asking for a refund on their sponsorship exposure because the car wasn't being shown at all. And all that.
But that's
at the end it was.
Yeah, in the end. But honestly, that's what they did. They did that during the Vettel era, Lewis era, the Michael era. They did it with, I don't really remember if Alonso, because it seemed like Michael was there. So there was always a threat. They were, from what I remember, they were always battling. But anytime it's a runaway in the front, yeah, they go right back to the back. Who wants to sit there and just watch one car out in the front with no challenges? He's fighting the wind.
Yeah. And the network thought it was more conducive to watch Oliver Bearman, right?
I agree.
Well, yeah, because he was the big talk, right? It seemed like everybody was talking about that. And from his story, right, it's I give him props because to be an F2 or F3 car is not a Formula One car, right? And he's qualifying and he gets a call, so yo, I need you to get your gear, get up here because you're gonna jump in F1 and drive. And he's just like, huh? And for him to come and deliver, he did exceptionally well. I think but what it also showed me is to have a good car to do exceptionally well, right? Because it goes back to now how disparate the car is within the whole field, right? Because he had supposedly the number 2 car in the field, and with his inexperience, he was still able to be in the points, right? So it's I think FIA needs to kind of look at how they do these rules. I understand that Formula One is supposed to be technologically advanced, but in my opinion is that they need to kind of set some more parameters around to get the cars kind of coming back closer together for the entertainment. Factor.
They're not going to do that. They're not going to do that because what you just described is the series Oliver Bearman races in F2. The cars are all the same.
Right. I'm not saying all the same. I'm just saying some of the rules.
Right. But I'm just saying I don't think they're going to do that because of that, because the whole premise behind F1 is that it's up to the teams. Like it's it's a whole engineering process, aerodynamic process. It's the whole thing with the drivers to try to create a car that is so much better than everybody else based on rules. Red Bull's been doing it.
So what about the cost cap, right? What about the cost cap? Wasn't the cost cap an attempt to try and supposedly to level the playing field?
That's what they've tried. They're trying that. But I just want to say this before we move off of Oliver Bearman is that yeah, I agree with you. He did exceptionally well because my understanding is that he got the call, got an hour in the car, and then he got qualified. I'm not taking, I hear him, it's a Ferrari, it's a better Ferrari than before, but it shows his quality that he got in the car and I have it here, hold on. Oliver Bearman qualified 11th, finished 7th.
No, so let me take it back.
I know you're not knocking him. But what I'm saying for me is that, yeah, he is somebody to watch. Yes, it's one race. Maybe two. They're hinting. Sorry, Simon. They're hinting, but he did an outstanding job.
Yeah, I think so. Because there's two major factors that he had to adjust to. Forget about the late call. That's just a late call. And to me, if you're gonna drive a Ferrari at Saudi Arabia, that late call is probably a dream come true. So let's level up. But the other two items I think he had to adjust to is the endurance portion of the race. Formula 2, they're not doing 56 laps or 57 laps, right? I think they do 20 or 30 laps in F2, right?
I'm not sure.
Then you have to learn everything on that steering wheel. Learn the buttons. Learn when you can do your drag reduction, DRS, and learn everything that's associated with the electrical hybrid battery, right? Because they don't have that on Formula 2 either, right? So I think from going to qualifying 11th, winning 7th, beating Lewis, beating Lando, making passes on was it Yuki Tsunoda? He passed.
He came around Tsunoda.
Yeah. Dude, I think he's probably sold up a contract in the next year or two.
Well, he'll be there, right? Because he even commented on, again, there's no car out there that like the F1 car, and he commented on how he was sore from the G's from the F1 car, right? But again, the point I'm making is that there are other good drivers within that field, right? And if given a similar car, they could be in the points, right? Where it's running, where it's not there, because he could have. I think they said that Vasseur told him, "Don't wreck the car." That's all they wanted him, not to crash the car, right? And then he, proceeded to be better than what they expected. So props to him, man. It's he did it was a big adjustment. Even with what Simon said, right? Learning the wheel. There's like a whole book I hear that you have to go through to know what the buttons are and everything on the wheel, because that's probably not in his the cars that he runs. You're not that sophisticated, right? So so no, I give him props. He pulled it off. He pulled it off big time.
They showed, if you when watching the race, you saw it in the later laps. He was resting his head against the halo because his neck was tired because of the G's the car.
Yeah, pulled. Right. His head was locked to the halo because because his head was gone.
His neck. He was just leaning it on there. And I forgot the reserve driver that commented on it, that he was like, "Oh yeah, I could see he was leaning his head up there. It's tired." Yeah, they pull so many G's. He's not accustomed to that.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, because of advanced aerodynamics. So that's true.
Yeah.
That's the question I would love to know is how do you prepare for that? But what exercises do you do?
They have it. What they do, they have I've seen it. They have a contraption. Sometimes it looks like a helmet with weights, and they're on the side. They're laying on the side, and their weights attached, and they're
Just think of your when you go to the universal machine and you're doing curls, right? And you're pulling up on the stuff and it's moving. They set it up that it's hooked to the head, and you do the head stuff back and forth with it, to build up your neck. And it's just like they also do the exercise where they take the weights and like put their feet up and like turn turn it around so that they can build up that strength. So there's a training regiment for that. Yeah.
I've seen it. Their physios I've seen footage of different physios putting their drivers through that, and it's to strengthen the neck muscle.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just want to get back to one thing you guys both mentioned, trying to equal out the field with the cars. I think, for the constructor points, they do not want to do that because each individual manufacturer needs to show their creativity in their cars. Mm-hmm. Those parts are supposed to translate back into the cars that they sell, right? Mm-hmm. So they have to leave some room in there for them to be creative. And mm-hmm. you kind of have to have not a blanket canvas. You got to have some rules and regulations with that canvas, but then it leaves some sort of percentage for them to be creative and try to outsmart the other individuals. Take that technology and that wherewithal back to their cars that they sell and be on top as far as sales price is concerned. So they're doing it right. I think they're being smart about it. It'll be nice to have equal playing field on the track as fans, right? I just don't think it's going to be that way until everyone has the same engineer, and I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, true. I would agree with that statement, but at some point, though, I think they already started with the supposed cost cap, try to tighten up that stuff to give opportunity, because ultimately the end product is having the fan interaction, right? Because you can have all the technology you want, but if nobody's watching your stuff, then you're not deriving the revenue you need. So it'd be interesting to see how they go around and doing it. And again, it's not to take away from what Red Bull did. They understood it. They brought the technology and they delivered. And as I keep saying, props to them, right? Everybody else in the rest of the field did not understand it, right? So, or did not grasp it as well as they grasped it. So that's it. But that's what it is, because as I said, Max could have went home and had dinner. And they chilled out because the thing was gone. Once you run on a dyno, it doesn't break. The cars are going to be reliable. All right, man, just chill out. We'll give you the trophy. No problem.
Yep.
Yeah, I hear you. One thing that I think is important for us to talk about is Kevin Magnussen's teamwork this weekend on the track. I thought it was stellar. Able to give his teammate Hülkenberg an advantage from a pit standpoint, but that's just my opinion. I love to hear what you guys have to think.
Well, that. I'll say this: yes, that's how it ultimately ended up, because when he did the pass on Yuki, and they gave him a 10-second penalty, that
crazy FIA man. What's up with these people?
Exactly, I agree. Killed his race right there, and to look at it, the pass was completed well before he drifted off the track, right? So I feel at a maximum, if you felt it's, okay, you want to give the position back, right? They said
or the 5-second penalty.
They said 10 seconds for that.
So they changed the rules, Ray, this year.
Oh yeah.
Anything that was 5 seconds last year is pretty much 10 seconds this year.
Are they crazy, man? What's up?
Yeah.
So they just
but I'm just saying.
Yeah,
he was clear. He was ahead, clear, not nose, whatever. He completed the pass before he drifted off. Okay, fine. Give it back. 10 seconds. Okay. So as a result of that, he helped his teammate.
Yeah, because that happened with Piastri on Lewis, right? Where he came through the corner, went off, and he just automatically gave it back. So it's kind of, it's again, that's a whole different topic. But the FIA, how they delegate stuff, sometimes it's very questionable. There's really no consistency, it seems sometimes.
Well, that's always been a problem.
Yeah.
I believe, and I'll do some research, and we maybe bring this up next week. I'll definitely do some research. But I believe you have to complete the overtake if you're going into a turn.
He did.
So I think if even though he was able to pass and get around him right before the turn, he wasn't able to finish the turn within the limits of the track, so he had to give it back. It's almost like in NFL, when they throw a quarterback, the quarterback throws a pass to the wide receiver, he has to catch it, secure it, and he can't touch the ground. He has to complete the entire sequence, and I think that's what it is on the passes. Don't hold me to that, even though my name is Simon. Don't quote me on that.
Well, because Yeah.
But I'll do some research and make sure that that's
good. Because you have to be side by side with the car, a little bit nose head, and come into corners. That's what I recall from it. Like if you're coming into a corner and you're going for it, the guy that's making that attempting to pass, right, has his nose ahead of the corner before you dive into the apex, for it to, for them to say, hey, okay, he's trying to get command of the corner, right? But they seldom complete the pass by then, right? Because usually, unless it's a dive bomb, then that's what will happen, right? But usually, like they come into the corner side by side, right? To be competitive and say you are in the wrong. If you're late breaking the guy, and your car is showing that your car is like in the nose or the wing is in front of his car, then they say, okay, that's racing, in their opinion, right? Yeah. Because it's still, it's a fine line they have to walk. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what you what you find out about that, because I remember that with Lewis a couple of years ago with him and Verstappen and all that stuff. So
I think there's two things there. I think you're right. If there is a corner coming up and your nose is ahead of them, right, the other car is supposed to back off because that person has the right to make the turn. But if you're passing them and you're going into a turn, you can't. All four of your tires still need to be on the track for you to complete that pass when you get to the turn. And once you go off, they're saying, no, you have to give it back now because you used the track limits as your advantage.
But I hear that. But in this case, but I hear that. But in this case, he had completed the pass. He was ahead of him, but as a result,
make the turn.
Huh?
Right?
Hold on. But
he couldn't make the turn.
No, hold on. Right. He couldn't make the turn when he was in front, but when it came up, the corner was there. So he had all that momentum from completing the pass. Then he ran off. So maybe you could say it could have been up to K-Mag to say, let me give it back just to be safe. Or they could have said, give it back. But instead, they doled out 10 seconds, which seemed harsh to me. That's all.
Yeah, because in the past, they've always said, you got to return the position.
Correct.
Right? And I know in some series, you have a certain amount of laps that you're allowed, a certain amount of time, which could be a lap or whatever, to return the position, right? Mm-hmm. And I've seen it even within past years in Formula One, they had that, where I forgot who it was that, we're like, well, you better return it or she's going to get penalized. And then he returned the position to the person, right? So who did it? Wait a minute. Verstappen? Didn't Max and Lewis crash up a couple of years ago, and they were waiting for the DRS zone so that they could go back at each other and take it back again?
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of strategy in that.
Yeah. So that comes back to memory. So
Lewis was saying he check braked him and hit him. Remember?
Right. Yeah. So
I remember that.
So this one was very harsh. I don't know what's going on. It's one to me. I took it as being harsh. Yeah, he was a consummate team player. Let's put it that way. I'll put it that way. To work it for his partner
for Hulkenberg.
Yeah, because dude, in Formula One, there's teams and then there's teams, and it's not all the time, somebody's going to step it up and take one for the other guy just to help the team out.
That's true. That's true.
I think you're right. It takes a really unselfish individual to do something like that. But it also, like Ralph said in the beginning, his race was done after that 10-second. So it was easy for him to do that or make that decision, in my opinion. If he was still in the race, I don't know if he would have done that, right?
Well, of course, I would agree to that statement. If he was still in the race, it's a whole different ball game, right?
Oh no, no, why would he? Yeah,
right, exactly, right. So he's not out of the race, and then you have to be selfless. You have the wherewithal too. Maybe this team told him, "Hey, help Hulkenberg."
Well, they needed the points, right? So it was for the team, really. It wasn't for Hulkenberg. Well, Hulkenberg did get some driver standing points for drivers, but still, it was kind of for the team, right? I think they came across.
When we first started the podcast, Ray, I think you mentioned that you heard some comments from Lewis that you wanted to talk about.
So okay, yeah.
Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
So he was in the pen, and he went back to the car. They asked him about the car, and I think he showed some frustration. He said, we've been at this for like 3 years now, and we still can't get the car right. As far as moving, because if you watch the race, right, in straight line, they trimmed the car out with straight, so less drag, right, less wing. So the straight line was fast. But when it came to high-speed corners, McLaren walked their asses. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
You just and I put it that way because the broadcast made a point to show it. I think it was like, twice when they went around, to see that, that he would be on, on Norris's bumper, right? The wing. And as they got into those little twisty high sport, it's just like, it's like he put nitrous in the car and he was just like, poof. And I think when they met in the pen, they were talking about it. And Lewis was like, he came back to that and said, hey, we've had, 3 years and we still can't get it right. He showed, to me, he showed frustration.
Yeah.
And I think rightfully so, in a way, because with no wing, it then you trim out the car, right? The car is not as stable going through those fast, movements of, the weight back and forth from side to side, right? Mm-hmm. So they just, he showed frustration. He showed frustration in there and saying, hey, and I think even George kind of commented, but Lewis said, we had, X amount of years and we still can't get this recipe right. That's the way I took it from.
He's leaving, so he could say that.
Well, true. Good point. Probably bolstering why his decision is to move over to somebody else, right? So, that's the deal.
I saw it. I remember seeing Lando Norris in his preview. Lewis was like 0.3 seconds behind him. And all of a sudden, as it was going through some windy S's, McLaren was just leaving him, just walking him.
Yep.
And it was so evident. But on the straight, they struggled. So McLaren had 3 years too to get it right on the straight. For some reason, Red Bull got it right on both. And I just don't understand how that no one in 3 years could duplicate what Red Bull has been able to do.
Listen, I said it the last time, and I should do it. I know it's Adrian. It's everything. The people, the engineers are building, but aerodynamics, Adrian Newey. So that's why when he was with McLaren, he was there when Mika Hakkinen ran. Ron Dennis got Adrian. Adrian was also when they started winning titles. Adrian was at Williams when Williams was winning titles, right? Who wanted Adrian? Christian Horner. They was like, we got to get Adrian. He got Adrian from them. He knows how to design a car, the aerodynamics of a car. He's a master at that. So that's what it is. That's why Red Bull keeps getting it right. I forgot which team Adrian was with. Man, I'll look it up. Where the car was good, but the engine wasn't. And they knew it. They made it a point to say, aerodynamically, the car is perfect, but the engine was the weak point. He's the one. So that's what Christian Horner and the rest of them at Red Bull did. They poached enough people from Mercedes, Ferrari. They poached top people to come in so they don't have a weak link. And it shows. It shows.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Christian Horner. Yeah. What you call it there? Adrian, he is, he understands it completely because, and the big kick on why we stayed with with Mercedes is that since they were so dominant for so long, that's why it stings them even more, right? Because they were, people came to understand them as, the top team per se, right? Whereas, McLaren kind of, they were a top team, but they had, they waned off after a while because of, the dominance of Mercedes. That's why, people are looking at it as like, if you're a top team, how come you can't grasp this concept and, get around it and make it work? So that's why I think, people kind of dwell on it more when Mercedes said as opposed to when, you look at McLaren getting it wrong, because we're seen as the top team, so now they can't, they're down there in the mixes with everybody else.
Yeah. Well, everything rises and falls, but we're here as fans waiting to see when there will be a challenger, because during the years of Nico and Lewis, there was no other team. They couldn't challenge them. So we were watching the inter-team battle between Nico and Lewis.
Right.
The rest of the field couldn't catch them.
Right.
So that's why, and if Sergio steps up, we can see that, but
Yes.
And then I doubt they're going to catch Red Bull this year. I doubt it. Maybe towards the end, but who knows?
Yeah, I don't see it. As I said in the last one, I'm sorry, Simon. As I said in the last one, I don't see any car coming next to Red Bull because even with Ferrari being the number 2 car, they're still being dusted. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's just, I don't see it.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, the Nico and Lewis thing was interesting to me because they were at one point best friends, right?
Yeah.
And they come up in the rankings together. So you thought it would have been a good match, and it was. I think it was. I think they're probably better friends now than they were when they were teammates again.
They would be probably.
Yeah. But it's so much money, so much on the line when it comes to racing against your friend, because you have to figure out a way to, and I hate to use this word because I can't think of another word at this point, to punk the other player or the other racer while you're competing on the track, right? So if you're going down the track and you got the inside lane, you have to say, I'm not moving. He's going to have to move. Exactly. And that's when the accidents happen, because the guy on the outside is saying, I'm not moving. He's going to have to move. And then who's at fault, right? Because with all the pressure, with all the demands of being a professional in this industry, you have to do that. You have to be somewhat of an alpha on that track, or you're not going to win.
Yeah. And that's what was happening. You're right. And that's what was happening between Lewis and Max. But they were siding more with Max. Max was trying to do that, punk him, like, I'm going to put it here. And Lewis was like, I know your game, and I'm going to stay here, right? So they would clash sometimes. And then that's when they were penalizing Lewis. But he's like, I'm not going to jump out of his way. And I know that's what Lewis is doing because Lewis idolized Senna, and that was Senna's style. He would put his car in a position and left it up to the other driver because you knew he wasn't going to move. So he would say, it's up to you. Either I get through or we're crashing. That was a different era. But I see that clearly with Lewis. I saw that clearly with Lewis and Nico. And I see Lewis and Max. And Max is doing the same thing. But that's what Alonso was the same way. That's world champion caliber right there. That's what separates them. So
you have to have no fear, right? Or you're willing to take the consequences based on that decision that you made.
Exactly.
Right.
And
exactly. And I'm starting to really like Alonso, man, after the last two years, seeing how much of a wily cat he is and how wise he is on that racetrack. And I think Lewis is getting there. I think Lewis is now. We'll see this year with George, because I still think he's going to beat George in the points because he just has more wisdom, in my opinion. But his car has to be up to par, right? Right now, I don't think it's up to par. But we'll see how that goes. I still think, all things being equal, Lewis can beat Verstappen.
Yeah. Well, I'll dare say he's done it before.
Right.
I'll dare say it. He can, but I'll go further. Lewis, I'll say this. Lewis can give him a run for his money. If Alonso had a car that was good, he can definitely also give him a run for his money, because I've never been an Alonso fan, but again, I respect his craft, and that he's no joke. I'll put it that way, because he has the mental side and the track side.
Yeah. Just real quick, Ray, before you jump in, my 5 drivers that I think could give, or the 4 drivers I think can give Verstappen a run for his money, I think if all things being equal, the cars, is Lando Norris, Lewis, Alfonso, and believe it or not, George Russell. I think George is at that point in his life where he's willing to take risks, and he will challenge the next person.
Oscar Piastri. I'd add that to him because he showed himself this past weekend, and he's been, even from last season, he's been kind of not nudging, at Lando, right? And he's getting, this season he's gotten more under his belt. He's seen the tracks and all the stuff before. So I'd throw Piastri into that mix.
I think one more year for Piastri.
Because
he couldn't pass Lewis for like 20 laps.
Yeah, but that came back as a thing of the car that they were in, right? That they couldn't, the car wasn't able to catch him on the straight when he can do it. He can really do it exercises on a turn per se, right? But he couldn't. But on the straight is where it would be optimum to do the pass, and the McLaren wasn't able. It had more wing on it than the Mercedes, right? That's why I could walk away from him in the corner, because if he'd have gotten past Lewis, he'd have done the same thing Lando did. He'd have been gone, right? Because majority, the track and the turns, he would be gone, right? So I think the cars were somewhat evenly matched as far as their makeup for aerodynamics, because right, one was fast on the straight, sucked on the high speed corners. The other one was not fast on the straight, but was good on the high speed corners. So that was the thing. I don't think they had anything that to really outpass. And plus, he rode it until Lewis pitted, right? So, and then they moved on. So he might have gotten a message from his people to say, hey, all right, he's got to pit. So once he pits, you make sure you put in a banker lap that you can get out in front of it. So
I want to add two names, and they both race for Ferrari right now: Leclerc
and Sainz.
And Sainz.
Yes,
Leclerc. I'm going to say I think he's a world champion. He just needs a car and getting more time. I think he is. I think I'm a battle with
Huh? That's funny.
What's that?
Yeah. No, I'm a Sainz guy. Sainz is in it. You saw he showed up to let him know that my seat is my seat. But and I'm glad he's doing well. But I think Leclerc, he has the ability, I would say. But I don't think and I'm going to say this, he doesn't seem to have the ruthlessness like some of these guys have. He's going to race you fairly, where he's going to leave you space on the track, right, for you to come in. Where these dudes, no, man, I need the whole track, and let the team go talk and say, the car was understeer, there was no, stuff. So you had to, in order to stay on track, he had to go wide, right?
Yeah.
And so I think with the guys that he's running up right now, they're a bit more ruthless than he is with it. He has a talent. I'm not going to take that from him, but I think he's more of a, I put a gentleman racer, that he's going to give you the space and stuff like that. Where these other guys, they'll cut your throat in a minute.
Yeah.
Everyone's a gentleman until they get, punched in the face.
Well, but I've seen him with Max, right? Even when he goes in and he has the inside on a turn, right? And usually drivers say if you have the inside, you own the corner, right? And he doesn't go all the way out and push Max, all the way out where, Max, he's on the inside corner. He's going to say, I need the whole road. He's just like Alonso is like that, right? And, and even Lewis to a point is like that. So, I think, I've not observed Leclerc doing that, right? He kind of let you run with him to do it on talent, right? But I think, he's got to, maybe a little bit more of that.
Well, he could develop that, but he definitely has the skill. He's shown that. At least I think I've seen that. Yeah, and Carlos Sainz, he has it too. And obviously their deficiency is the back office of Ferrari with the strategy and the car. I think if both of those things were better, we would see a slightly better, more competitive. I think they would be able to pick off Checo every now and then.
I would want to agree with that, depending on the tracks that are coming up. But because I think they have a solid car, right? I think I see a Ferrari winning a race this season, right? Maybe a couple, because again. They might each track, some tracks have more straights than others, some tracks have more corners than others. The what you call it there, the compound on the how it interacts with the track might be different. So I see them challenging. Well, all right, yes, I made a bold statement. They'll probably pull off one, right, when Max goes out to lunch and come and says, what, I'm not coming back. but they'll definitely go after Checo unless Checo really tightens up onto Max, right? If Checo can get around the car and start tightening up his time now, not having that, the big gap between him and Max, right? So he's there, right? Because he started from second row this time, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, so
I'll tell you. I'll find it.
Yeah, so if he could, tighten up on him, he should be good.
Yeah. Perez started third.
Right.
Started third.
Yeah, right. Second row. So we'll see what happens.
I think the only way another team is going to win the race other than Verstappen if they put the racer that's in Mercedes that his dad used to be a world champion.
Mick Schumacher. Mick Schumacher.
Schumacher. They put Mick Schumacher in a car and say, "Hey, go take him out in the first." Take him out of the first round. Right? That's the only way.
You're cold, Simon. You're cold, bro. You're cold.
Or you could do Lance Stroll.
Yeah, somebody's gonna have to take Max out and say, "Hey, man, we're gonna pay you $10 million. Go ahead and take him out."
Yeah.
But really quick, you just mentioned Lance Stroll. If his father didn't own the team, do you think he'd still be racing in that team?
The answer is no. He would not be there.
There you go. Okay, we can leave it there. All right.
And everybody knows that.
Yeah.
He has talent, but the caliber at which he's trying to punch at, he's not really there. He's not really there.
Yeah.
Right. So
he's had days where he looks like a competitive racer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's consistency.
The other days have been average.
Yeah.
The majority have been average.
Right. Yeah. So
and his teammate is Alonso, who he could pick a car up and get a couple tenths out of it more than a bad car and make it look better than it is.
Yeah, well, your boy Alonso already put him in his place last year, right?
Yeah.
He's like, remember he's driving up there and he's like, so how's he doing? I'm, he might need to try this or, so it's coming up,
Listen, Alonso, he said it in Drive to Survive one season. Yes, I am on the dark side. That is so true.
Yes.
And they all say it. He plays the political game, the behind the scenes with the teams, within the team. He plays the mental, and then he has the skill, and he's ruthless. He's a total package. And I mean, he's the only one that raced against Michael and beat him. So I mean, even that in itself is a star none of them will get because Michael's not there anymore, and he was the pinnacle. Alonso.
He was. And then he raced against Lewis too and had, fierce battles with him too, right?
Oh yeah. That I don't know if Bearman will be this, but I'll just say this piece. When Lewis came to McLaren, Alonso had just came into McLaren. Alonso was gonna be, everyone felt, the de facto number one. Lewis was gonna come, young kid, just stepping up. He's gonna come in and learn from the world champion. He was already a two-time world champion, Alonso was. And I forgot the race, but I remember seeing it. And I'm watching the race, and I think it was Kimi Räikkönen or somebody was behind him pressuring, trying to get up. Lewis was in second, Alonso was in first. And you saw that every time Kimi went, it's almost like he read his mind. Kimi's like, I'm going to go down to the right. Lewis's car just before, boom, in the right. He was reading him. And that race, I'll have to look it up to see. That was the race that sparked the beginning of the end, because that was the race Lewis realized, hey, I could beat Alonso, because he was running similar times to him. And that's when the McLaren, it just went to crap. The whole thing, because the two of them started battling,
Yeah.
So last topic before we head out, we wanted to talk about the Saudi Arabia track design. I know that there was some topics there, or some things that we wanted to kind of go over. I'll let you start, Ray. What did you think about the design of the track?
So there was a comment made by Alex Albon, and I saw it. It was not turn one, but I believe it was turn two, where it went into that little kink to go through. And what the designers did was, on the inside of the corner, they bumped it out towards the track as opposed to away from the track. So that caused the problems that the drivers had. It exacerbated the problem when the guy was on the inside, because you're leaving the person's space, but not realizing that by the time you're getting up to the apex, that space you leave on the inside is no longer there because of how they designed the corner. And I have an issue with that. That's dangerous. That is dangerous. I'll call it out. That's dangerous. They should know better, right? Because even Alex mentioned it, that, when he went to do a pass in that same area, he was like, man, I got to make sure that, I kind of take a little bit more, just because it's going to close. And so that, that's something that should not happen. I think that's, because after you mentioned that, I went through and I looked back through, some of the race, and you could see it that the concrete barrier protruded out more, right, into right at that apex, and so you coming in and you're straddling, 2 tires off and 2 tires on the track, and all of a sudden you come into that corner and it's like, no, the thing comes out even further than that, so you have no space. So
Which corner was that? Do you remember corner number?
I think it was like number 3. I think you did the turn to come around, and then you go. There was a little kink. You went to the left, and then went right back to the right. And if you watch it, a lot of the passes there, you'll see the concrete barriers protruding out behind the rest of it on its way up to that turn. So yeah, and I think that's that's poor. They shouldn't be doing that. They shouldn't be doing that on that stuff.
I do know that, we were just talking about him. His dad owns a team.
Lance Stroll.
Lance Stroll, when he crashed, that was pretty significant. And the team asked him if he could take the car, bring the car in. He was like, "No, I hit the wall." But that was the only DQ.
Yes, yeah, that was it. And it was funny because the team was. I heard a commentary that the team was so caught up on just watching the telemetry, they weren't watching the race to see what really happened. They're just watching the telemetry coming from the car, right? So that's kind of led them to that question to say, can you bring it back, because they're just watching the data come back from the car, not really watching the race. But yeah, it's he brought the field back together, but it's again, Max can just hang up his hat, man, and he needs to take a seat in the bleachers and watch the race. And then when it's time for him to give out the trophies, just walk up and take his first place and say, thank you very much. And just go on about business,
Just be patient, man. All good things come to an end, right?
Oh yeah.
All good things go to an end. Ask Lewis.
Yeah.
Yes. They all suffered it. Look at Alonso. He only won 2 titles. He hasn't won since.
Yeah, Max has said that on radio a few times that we'll still enjoy it now because we don't know what the future holds. But but for now, man, he just needs to chill out. Just chill out and just walk up and take a trophy and say, "All right, man, I dropped the mic." Red Bull dropped the mic on F1.
He has 3 championships, right?
I think Max.
Yeah, he's going for his 4th.
Yeah, and he's leading the statistics for the most wins so far. Something like that. So yeah, it's my respect, is due again. But yeah, it's just Adrian Newey got it right, man. The package came together correctly in all aspects, and other people can't figure out that missing link to come and get them, right? As we said, Ferrari's the closest one to them, and they're still a distance away, and then you have the rest of the field.
Yep.
So
yeah. So next race is in Australia.
Yeah.
March 22nd, the weekend of March 22nd, which is 2 weeks from now. That one should be interesting. We'll see. That track is a lot of turns, not a lot of straights on there. So I'm wondering what they're going to do, especially Mercedes, because we're taking away their advantage as far as the straights are concerned. But be interesting to see what happens in that qualifying and that practice, right?
Yeah. Well, usually on that track, they do a lot of passing right before they come back to start finish. The track jogs to the right, and that's where they try to get behind the guy coming down that one straightaway and then jump out to catch in that turn. But they don't do much, from my recollection, much passing during the twisties on the other side of the track, because it's basically somewhat limited, right? In doing that stuff. But so we'll see what happens when that one pops up, because it's going to be interesting. It's definitely going to be interesting. See what happens.
All right. Well, guys, it's been a great conversation like always. Look forward to us meeting in Australia, but maybe next week we'll meet to talk about a few things. Thanks for the commentary, and thanks for meeting us today on the Fellas.
Take care, everyone.